Hello again, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Noble Father podcast. I am your host, Theophilus, and it has been a long time since I've actually recorded an episode. I was going to record one last Monday, but we had gotten back from China, and the time difference and the jet lag and just getting resituated after a long trip was something that was just too much for me. And so I thought I'd wait. And, of course, usually these episodes are released on Mondays. Yesterday I didn't do one as well because it was my 39th birthday. And I thought being more present there is easily the more important choice. And so there was no hurry to get these out. And, it's always, you got to make a decision, right? In the moment, be present. What is before you? What is the specific context? And I chose to be present. This episode, I really want to talk about the entire trip and kind of the subsequent time of readjusting to life here in Canada. Such that, I married my wife. She is from China, and that is where she calls home. She's never left aside from after she met me and after we got together. And so, China is my home. China is also my second home. And it's always a difficult thing to go back because you're so torn between the two places. We can't be at both places at the same time. And culturally and for our kids, it just doesn't make sense to do that at this moment. Now, obviously, for this trip, it was one to go back and to see family, and how it came about really was just seeing that my wife's grandfather was not doing very well, and it just looked like he was on his last legs, and he was bedridden and not getting out. Winters in China are exceptionally cold, and staying in bed is the most prudent thing for aging, senile people. And so I recall the video call that my wife was having with her family, caught a glimpse of her grandfather, and he just looked very unwell. And, I felt in my heart and my spirit that we needed to go back home. And so we purchased tickets and we went. My wife went first, and then me and my son went afterwards. And my wife went with my daughter as well. And, on that trip, we just ended up saying goodbye to our grandfather. He passed midway through the trip. It was a very sudden passing, and it was not very expected. A few days prior, he was sent to the hospital because he wasn't holding down food and wasn't wanting water. And usually when that happens, you only have a few days left. It was interesting, when I look back on the trip now, God really had his hand in it. He really wanted us to be there for that time. I think back to if my wife and I were here and the passing happened, it would be infinitely worse, just incredibly worse. And my wife would not be able to grieve properly. Even being there was difficult. That night we had gone out with one of her cousins. We went rollerblading, and that night as we were coming home, as I was pulling the car into the underground parking lot, my wife just started to be hysterical. She was like, "Get out, get back out, pull the car around, come back out." And in my mind, you're frantic, right? My daughter was standing with her, and my son was with them, and she was frantic, and obviously she was like, "We have to go to the hospital." And I knew that was go time. And so that whole night was a very, very jarring experience for my children. They'd never seen their mother in that way before. She was if you've heard previous episodes, my wife's grandfather is the closest person to my daughter, my wife. She was raised by them, and if there's anyone that my wife is close with, it's her grandfather. And so losing him, it was hard, very difficult. And for ourselves, culturally, it was a thing that we had to navigate as a family. My kids didn't understand. I kind of didn't understand. And that night they actually didn't end up making it in time. The turnaround in China, such as that, as soon as somebody passes, they are, packed up and moved out of there. And so my wife didn't even get to see him one last time. Interestingly, a few days before his passing, we went to go have dinner or lunch at their place. And, that turned out to be the last goodbye. It was so interesting. I remember we walked into the apartment and we went over to look at him, and, because his hearing is hard of hearing, and, he can still see. And so most of it is all just visual. I remember we leaned over and, we're waving at him, and he was in his bed, his hand was sticking out of his blanket, and he was waving. And then he wouldn't stop waving, and he kept waving. And when I looked back on that, I was like, wow, like, I think that was the moment he was saying goodbye to us. I think he knew. It was just a longer, wave than previous. Usually he'd tuck his hand back in, but this time it was like 3-4 times longer. And I think that was the last goodbye. That was his last goodbye. And so that was exceptionally hard for my wife, when I, as I'm talking about this episode, sharing on this episode, she's outside, and, any mention of her grandfather now, she, will release the floodgates, and, rightfully so. Her heart is still broken. She still hasn't reconciled a lot of those things inside, and grief in China is one in which, better, hidden, right? You hide your face, you hide your real face from people, and so that's been an exceptional thing. Obviously for our marriage, when we were there, a lot of fraying and a lot of clashing. When somebody's passing that way, we've been away from China for almost 10 years now. Next year will be 10 years. And so in the eyes of my wife and in her heart, she very much feels like we could have been back more. Just such that business and the way that my life has unfolded, not that I don't have an onus to play in that. We haven't been able to afford as many trips back home. And that has weighed very heavily on my wife, and is something that weighs really heavily on my heart as well. I love her with all my heart. I love her family with all my heart as well. And it's not an easy balance. It's not a thing that I have the answers for, right? I also ask God all the time, like, Lord, like, why this? Why did it have to happen this way? But I mean, without his leading us, we wouldn't have come back. We wouldn't have had the funds to come back. We looked at the tickets, and the tickets were half of what they normally were. And I was like, wow, Lord, you're opening the door for us to go. And so what else but to be obedient and to be there. And of course, while we're there, this happens. And so I kind of see God's hand going through all of these things. My kids, that's the first, I think, very real grief that they've ever had to see firsthand, and it was a very jarring one, right? They've never seen their mother that hysterical in that way, and so it was kind of an opportunity for us to talk to them and grow with them. So coming back and readjusting to life over here, it has been a very difficult challenge. Through the time that I was away, there's a lot of things that were looming and things that were happening, and there's been legal battles that I've been legal troubles that it's been nagging at me. I've been living rightly and honestly and in integrity, and there's been those that are fueled by greed and deceit, and out to get my family and I and just harm our well-being, and that's been very heavy. Learning to stand my ground is something that I'm learning, and also learning to be quiet, right? That the battle does not belong to us, and it belongs to God, and that, God fights for us on our behalf. And that's not to say being Christian means I gotta, just turn my cheek, get hit, and turn my cheek again, get hit, and just keep doing that over and over again. Like, there is a vengeful side of the Lord, right? He uses the word enemies in the Bible, like the God of love uses the word enemies in the Bible. So, what does that mean, right? Jesus was overturning tables as well, right? And so what does that look like, right? Every time I think about the situation, I always pray a blessing over I'll say enemies, right? I pray a blessing over this person that's coming at me with falsities, with fabricated evidence, and trying to, paint a picture that is favorable to themselves. And all I've done is ignore the attacks that have been coming my way and to pray a blessing over them. Because if I were to entertain any of the thoughts that I've had in my mind, I would probably not be sitting here. I would probably be behind bars, or worse, potentially no longer on this planet, right? That's really how things usually spiral out of control. And now kind of in the process of seeking legal advice, and what does that look like? How do we approach this? And so, yesterday's birthday was exceptionally difficult, probably one of the most harder ones that I've ever had to face myself. If not for the company of good men in my life, with friends that seek the best for me, and people that are praying for me nonstop for, the things that are going on, that have not stopped praying for us. That's been glaringly obvious in my life, and I don't know where I would be without that kind of support. I don't want to go too long on this episode. I'm trying to keep these to a minimum. I can speak endlessly. One of the things that I do want to share right now with you all is that I'm looking to do less of this kind of format where I'm talking to the camera and it's just myself. I want to bring on more guests. I want to bring on more guests to have more deep and meaningful conversations. And, I'm of the type to, I prescribe to the idea that you can learn from anybody, regardless of what their opinions or beliefs are, that you could take opinions, you can learn things from so many different things as long as you come with an open heart. And that's really what I want these conversations to be about. There are a few things that I need to work on to get that up and running. How the set's going to look, where am I going to do it, how I'm going to do it. And I just ask that you be patient and actually, continue to pray for me, because, Noble Father is growing. And when I ask God, how does this group grow? His response to me is it grows in the hearts of all the guys who are already in here in the group. And so I don't really know what that means, but I'm trusting in the Lord and giving him that as I deal with all the stuff that's going on, as we readjust the family and life back here, dealing with the legal matters as well. These are things that are in the back of my mind. We have a retreat coming up in May. We're going to San Antonio with a bunch of guys. It's going to be an amazing time of deeper fellowship. And we also have that in store. And so, if you're a father listening to this for the first time and wondering, what is Noble Father? Well, you know how there's not a lot of spaces online for, men to share openly and deeply about things. We are that. Every Thursday we gather together and we meet and talk about the deep things of life. What is the struggles that they're in? Maybe it's a divorce or a separation or a child custody battle that's going ugly. Could be business. It could be, personal development journey. Could be mental health. Could be addictions. Could be endless, right? Things that men struggle, right? Nothing is new under the sun. And we share and we talk openly about those things, and it's just a place to be received and to be supported, and not to have our bullshit co-signed by anybody, right? If you're wrong, and you're going to hear about it. It's not a place to get judged or, to be coached, right, by any specific expert. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing and imperfect in their own right. And so it's just a place where we can all be that, where we can drop the mask. Not just weekly meetups. There are times where guys would be like, hey, I'm going through something. I need some space. And I've seen this time again. Guys would get into a space together and just help a brother through the difficult things in life. We are a paid premium community. And so for $25 USD a month, fathers can get the support that they need. And for the value that you're getting for that investment is unbelievable. And we are looking to raise that soon. So if you're going to get in now, or else you're going to be left behind. Not to, create a bit of FOMO, but, these meetings are absolutely amazing. These are guys that have walked me through some of the most difficult things in my life. If not for them, I probably wouldn't be here as well. And if you're just looking to go deeper and find friends that care and genuinely want the best for you, and do everything in their power to go beyond the platform of the social media, we are that group. And so if you are interested in that, please reach out to me or go to noble-father.com and you'll find our information there and to next steps as well. Newcomers get a 30-day trial. And so if you're interested in seeing what we're all about, you can take advantage of that 30-day trial, attend all the meetings, all the masterminds that we do, and see what our community is all about. We're over on Discord. And so it's a very easy, accessible app to use on your mobile devices or on your computer. And we hope to see you there. And so thank you for joining me for this episode. Please stay tuned for when I do have those conversations. I don't know roughly when that's going to take place, but I'm looking to do those over these weekly updates. And so please continue to pray for me. Thank you for all the support you guys have shown me. And please stay tuned for more. Remember, we are not promised tomorrow. So remember to stay present and be noble. Bye for now.